This is Breaking MedTech. I am Ryan. That is Cope. His hair looks amazing today. No?
Thank you.
You look like, oh my God, what is his name? The guy who played Batman, who's currently playing, he's Christian Bale. You look like Christian Bale in American Psycho.
I am a Huey Lewis fan.
I wish I could have delivered that quicker. So today we're going to be talking about tailoring your messaging to the audience that you're talking to. You and I were just talking about this. If you've ever listened to me talk about this before or write stuff on LinkedIn, I actually don't like the idea of tailoring your messaging to the audience with the way that most groups think about it. And I think you and I just came up with an analogy that will clearly explain it to people in the way that we want you to take it.
Right. Agreed. And let's back up to the problem. And I would say the problem might be that somebody thinks I look like Christian Bale. I look just like him, except for all the looks, the talent, and everything else.
I'm Batman.
But anyway, the problem oftentimes is that we have a product that solves a problem, but there's multiple stakeholders in it, right? So what as a good salesperson and a good marketing person tries to do is, if there's 5 audiences in this, and we'll give examples, can we give each audience the similar story, the same, but give them a win, like something that makes it interesting, valuable, important to them? And oftentimes I find that it's just changing the priorities of the things I'm talking about in this story. But excuse me, I can't just go to somebody who's a stakeholder and go, well, he loves it because of this, and leave it there. What I end up doing is like, he loves it because of this, she loves it because of that, you might like it because of, right? And that's me tailoring the story, and it's honest and it's truthful to the audience, right? So that's the problem, because it's hard. It's not that easy to do, but we need to do it, particularly in healthcare nowadays, because it's not just one direct to clinician. It's direct to multiple people.
And with the interesting,
roles.
The thing that why is this important for small MedTech companies is because I can tell you that almost everyone, I can't think of one that we've ever met with or I've met with, and I would probably say maybe you've met with 1 or 2 because you've met with so many more than I have, that nail this right off the bat. Because what they typically do when we sit down and talk with them for the first time, or they show us their product, whatever it is they just say they have one thing, and then you see them, we go on a sales call, we talk to them about it, whatever it is, and you see them say the exact same thing to sterile processing that they would say to peri-op, that they would say to a surgeon, that they would say to a coordinator, and they're just saying the exact same thing. And sometimes whoever's on the receiving end gets pissed about it, and they're like, I don't care. Why are they talking to me about that? Right. I do not care about that.
And we've seen this, Ryan, even in a simpler fashion. We've seen founders who have spent 2 years raising money use their founder deck.
Oh, that's over
for clinicians, right? And I get it, but that's an example of not knowing your audience. And then that audience, most of the times, what we find now, are multiple stakeholders within, and you have to talk to them.
Yeah.
Right. But that's an example, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. I would tell you, if you're selling into healthcare today, you got to at least tailor your message to 2 audiences, maybe 3. No, it makes sense. It would be clinician, service line, and
leadership of that business unit.
Yeah, right? Of that. Service line leader, the clinician, and the
we
probably
can call it value analysis, but
supply chain or
supply chain. Yeah.
You're at least 2 or 3. The only time that you might if you're private practice.
Yeah. Yep.
A single doctor, nobody else he doesn't have an administrator, because if he has an administrator, you got to tailor it to 2. So,
well, and I've heard, it's funny. I've heard let's use that. We can use that example, and I'll give you an example of a product I'm selling now that has multiple stakeholders. By the way, frankly, multiple stakeholders who get wins.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, this is not me gilding the lily, as the saying goes. This is me actually saying, hey, here's why we think you will like this. But I would say we have to. I've heard really good salespeople in meetings when they're looking at a new product go, okay, so I get why the doctor might like it, or even the nurse or whomever it is. Why would these people like it? Is there a reason why? And they know those people are stakeholders. And if the response sort of tells you a little bit where the company is from their stance. But I've done it. I've seen good reps go, okay, well, why would the director of perioperative services care about this? Like, what win do they're basically saying, can we get a win for that person? Does that person, why would they want this to be enacted in place? That's what and when sales works with marketing, that's what we do together so that we can tailor our message to the stakeholders that either need to be neutral or you're trying to get a win. And marketing supports me with messaging, research, champions in other places that got wins in that person's domain.
I mean, even like right? you and I do it sometimes. And let's say your sales, I'm marketing. Like sometimes marketing's just good at tailoring message, like helping you tighten up a story or tighten up a message. Like most people who are, we're not all Don Draper. But like sometimes just having a second person who is in the room talking to you going like, maybe describe it this way, maybe do it this way. I don't know. I'll give you, so I brought along a show and tell.
Oh, all right.
Of like, here's an example, a non-work related, non-MedTech related stuff. So this is I'm trying to cover my address. So it says it's reversed. You're not gonna be able to see it, but it was sent to me. It says "Love where you live." It's Joshua Tree, and they do my fertilizing, right? But their messaging is "Love where you live." Okay, a really rudimentary example of. Do you think they would put "Love where you live" and send it to a business? No, they would not. They would tailor it would be telling the same story of like, hey, you want the front of your business to look like absolute, like perfection. But for me, it's love where you live because I live here and I want to love where I live. I want to drive up my driveway and go like,
I'm glad I'm home.
I'm glad I'm home. Great. This looks great. And they know that I care about it because I'm already a customer of theirs. So it's like, and that's a different stage thing of like, if I wasn't a customer, they might not go love where you live. They might go like get expert lawn treatment because that's maybe their foot.
Are you happy with what your yard looks like? Right.
So like, it's different. You tailor your message to who you're talking to. It's the same story. It's the same idea of like, you want the front of whatever building or whatever green thing that is outside to look beautiful, but you're using different messaging. You're describing it a different way for each audience.
Yeah. I like that. That's good. I'll put you on the spot. What do you think their message would be to a business that uses them? Let's make it like if I put you on the spot, what would pop out of your head to give people an example? I would say, feel good coming to work. I don't know, like take pride in work, like be proud of where you work, or I don't know. You're better at this than I am.
I guess it would depend. Like, are customers going to be there? Like, impress your customers,
right.
Or
is it just to make employees feel
remove the hassle of what's the emotional win? I'd have to like I don't own a business where I need expert landscaping done outside. Like, if you were thinking like a giant, industrial park I work in. I drive through one every single week, right, when I go to work, and that, like everything there looks manicured and beautiful. Why? Because that's like, who wants to own a business where the outside looks like the beaches of Normandy? Shout out to our last episode. So,
right. Well, it also looks like, I'll bet you, my wife being in real estate, I'll bet you can charge more per square foot to lease the place.
Yeah.
Because it looks great.
Yeah.
I know it does. I know you can. So,
yeah.
Yeah. So that's sort of mapping your audience and making your message specific to that audience and helping them try to get wins by solving a problem that they have that you're good at.
Yeah.
Solving.
Yeah.
Right?
All right. So can you give me your example? Yeah. And then I'm going to kind of explain it to the audience in a way that I think will help them understand how they can do it moving forward.
Okay. Let me see if I can do this succinctly. So there's a lot of problems in ENT right now, ear, nose, and throat, otolaryngology to the Latin speakers out there. In let's say in the operating room, they have these little instruments. They're borderline impossible to clean to the standards. And I'm being generous by saying borderline. They're impossible to clean. And it causes a patient risk. So to avoid the patient risk, the people that wash it do all kinds of things, clean it, that's sterile processing. But the OR staff takes time, stops everything, and inspects these things in the room because they cannot have it get into a patient or on their sterile back table. In the meantime, it delays case starts. It frustrates the surgeons. It drives them nuts. If you start, I'm starting to go up the list. Now you start to go to the person who runs the operating room, who's in charge of the operating room. He hates what the problem is because his KPIs look lousy. The on-time starts are down. Their room turnover times are down. By the way, he knows this jeopardizes patient care, and that is not acceptable, right? That is the prime directive. I almost don't have to say it because everybody knows it, but I'm just going to say it here. And the people who are in charge of making sure they're compliant to Joint Commission or Department of Health or DNV standards, the oversight companies that come in and say, how do you know that's clean? Show me your process. Did you follow it? How did you document it? They're inspecting these things now. So the health system knows they're at some risk, right? And the people who run the place go like, I know we're spending a ton of money on these instruments, reprocessing them, inspecting them, documenting them. We're paying people to do this every day, and it's slowing our entire operating room down a little bit, incrementally. It's not enormous, but it's death by 1,000 paper cuts, right? So this is the problem. I found one company in the country that has a product that takes this off. And so when this problem off the table. And so when I say to these, so right, are you following me so far? Like, does this make sense?
Yes. Yes.
So I've named, I think, 5 different stakeholders, maybe, right? So when I bring this product in, I start at sterile processing and say, hey, tell me what you think of this. Like, do you like this? Because I'm guessing, I already know you hate doing these instruments that are reusable. They hate them, despise them, because they know it's impossible to do. I'm like, oh my gosh, if we had this, it'd be awesome. We wouldn't. I'm like, oh, what do you have? And then I go and I show it to the people who coordinate the ENT department. And they're like, oh, I'd love this because our cases aren't getting started on time. We have to inspect these. We're frustrated with sterile processing. It's killing us. Well, how much? 5 minutes twice a week. Or we're getting delays. Our surgeons are frustrated. They now have no faith in anything that's coming into the room. And then when I go up to the director, he's like, oh my gosh, I hate those things. It's killing us. Yours would help us with all those things. That's the same story. It's the same little product, but it's a different message because I'm trying to sing in their key, right? And then when I talk to anybody who's in a leadership role from a value analysis standpoint, I'm saying like, by the way, the Joint Commission could be coming in here next week, and one of the first things they're doing is they're walking in and looking at these cannulated instruments and they're going, oh, do you inspect them? Cool. Can I see your log? And people are like, I don't even know right? So you're at risk of a citation. And that's the same story to 5 different audiences. but I know what matters to each audience. And then I go like, yeah, and this thing costs X. And the leadership goes, make it happen. And I just made sterile processing, OR nurses, surgeons, director of perioperative services, and the health system happy, right? Because that's a different message to 5 different audiences. Mm-hmm. So hopefully that made sense, because we're med device salespeople right now understand this. Like, oh yeah, I got to talk to a bunch of people. It'd be cool if I could get them wins. So I'll shut up now, Ryan, and tell me what you think of that.
So you said different messages. It is different. It's almost like it's the same actual story. So you actually were talking about it as the same pain. It's the same pain every single place. You're just spinning it a little bit different. So the way that I think you and I agreed on, because that would be like, what I don't want people to take away is like, oh, I got to tailor my message and change everything and do this. And it almost makes it seem way more complicated than it actually is. Right. Yeah. And the way that I just
the pain each one has, and then the win each one has.
Yeah.
But
it's following in the same story. So the way that I think a good way to describe this, to put it in people's minds that they can understand, is like, you and I were joking about, there's 2 ways to do it. Like you were in a frat. You went to, I'm sure there were nights where you went to a party, and the next morning you and your buddies all woke up, okay? And you stumbled into the kitchen, and you're sitting there, and there's 5 of you, and you all witnessed the same thing happen, and you all told different variations of it, okay? And what I'm telling you to do when you are telling your story to the 5 different stakeholders is you kind of reverse it, okay? Where, you're taking those 5 different stories and everyone has their own personal opinion on it, but like, you're still telling the same core message. There's just a little bit different of a spin. And another way to describe it, which I like a little bit more, is we don't condone violence, but let's say you got in a fight when you were in school, okay? You're telling that fight story to the different stakeholders completely different, right?
So name those stakeholders if I were to have done something as foolish.
Okay. Well, because I described this earlier and I think you enjoyed it, of like, you're telling your mom that like everything's okay. It's not the end of the world. It wasn't that big of a deal, right? You're telling your dad.
A dust up.
Just was a dust up, right? You're telling your dad that you didn't get your ass beat, okay? Because dads, all right? You're telling the administrators that they started it. It wasn't me.
I'm
right?
not even sure what happened. It was definitely them.
It was definitely them, right? You're telling your buddies that you won, right? Because and you're hoping that none of them saw it. And
I mopped the floor with that guy.
And you're telling you're telling everyone who you want to impress, like let's say
my girlfriend.
Yeah, you're telling your girlfriend like, no, he was twice the size of me, but but I won the fight. And then like you're like, maybe depending on reading the mood, you're like, hey, but like, I was compassionate about it. I understood that, he's going through some things and I could see the hurt in his eyes. Okay. It's the same story. You're telling it 5 different ways to 5 different people, but it's the same core story. So apply that to sales, right? You're telling the same core story about this product. You're just kind of spinning it a little bit each way different. Like it's not complicated. I joked earlier, like you and I find this kind of easy. Maybe we're the idiot savants, heavy on the idiot. We wish we had more savant, but like it's not a complicated thing. And like that would be what I would tell everyone to take away from it is like it's not hard. And it's when you're doing it for like marketing purposes, like emails, well, it really depends who you're talking to. Your email should be written to kind of reflect the story and language that you're trying to use for whoever you're emailing with, especially if it's like in a sales capacity. What would I tell you to do for your website? Your website should really be who's the first person that you're trying to, the language on your homepage should be who's the first person who you're actually going to try to have a conversation with. right?
Right.
What does it matter to them? If you have multiple stakeholders in this, it's what matters to that person. Because what you don't want to do, I would tell you you're better off doing that than doing what a lot of companies do, which is like, we have 5 different stakeholders. I'm just going to make some general boring language that everyone's happy with.
It speaks to none of them.
It speaks to none of them, right? And I know that even here's a really cool thing that I think some companies are doing based off of things that you suggested to them, of like, you have companies now who are building, because the real one that maybe is the furthest away from everybody is the value analysis portion of it. And there are companies who make single products now who I know, based off of your recommendation, are making a page on their website. So up top, right, where it says like they, about, get rid of your about section and take for value analysis or for supply chain, like call it directly out. And then that entire page explains the value that you provide to and what it like
to them,
yeah. Right. So, but like for marketing, you could use it. It depends who you're talking to. For your website, who's the first person you have your foot in the door with? And if you go, well, I don't know who the first person foot in the door, like, well, it really depends. You know what that tells me? You need to get out and go talk to more people, because it should be very clear to you who's the first person that you're talking to.
I like that. Yeah, I like how you tied that back to the website.
Yeah.
Because I know how important that is, and I actually do. Like, websites are not something just to, check it out. It's actually a place where you can inform, educate, and drive the sale.
Yeah.
If people do it the right way. That's really, I like that. So, okay, so our takeaways, Ryan. Again, just as an aside, no animals or FICAPs were injured in the telling of that story.
No.
As far as anyone knows. And so let's wrap it up. You have to have sort of the same story with different messaging to different stakeholders in it, because you'd like to get them wins if possible.
Yeah.
And why they should like or want or care about your solution, particularly if you're not the prime driver, but you have a stake in it, right? Did I encapsulate it?
That's 100% correct. Because even with people who are not like, who like you explained, like for it's going to cost more, but you're saving the OR $100 and they're going to love you. So because if you just leave it at like, and this is the value analysis portion of it, like if you just leave it as like, hey, it's going to cost $10 more a case, you better have a justification in a story, in a spin of why that matters.
Exactly. And I think like my supply chain win in this is, hey, you're going to actually spend more on a cost per case basis, theoretically, on your products that you have to buy for each procedure. However, you're going to save money here, and it won't show up in your department, but it definitely shows up in the OR is more A, B, and C. So at least they know why somebody else likes it and what to expect. And you can't get a win for everybody, right? But I have had many supply chain people tell me, thank you for explaining it to me, because we don't necessarily know why we buy things, but we have to buy them. And it's nice that somebody came in and said, hey, here's what it costs, but here's what the health system or hospital or ASC gets for it, even if it looks like we're spending more than we typically would want to, right?
Yeah.
So I do think that's very reasonable. I like that. Did we get better today? Did we help people today?
I think I did.
I hope we did.
I hope we did. So,
all right. Well, this has been Breaking MedTech, and we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.